كانوا يحضرون لعملية اغتيال. المعادلة اختلفت.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's top stories. Hundreds in Tripoli demand the referral of Michel Smeha's file to the Judicial Council. Former Prime Minister Saad Hariri accuses him of attempting to ignite a civil war. Free Patriotic Movement leader Michel Aoun blasts Prime Minister Tamam Slam's government for its democratic ignorance regarding the presidential election. And U.S. President Barack Obama vows to back Gulf allies against any external attack amid Arab anxiety over U.S.-led efforts to reach a nuclear deal with Iran. Future movement leader Saad Hariri has criticized the military tribunal's decision over 2 days earlier to sentence former Minister Michel Smeha to 4.5 years in jail, saying the decision was too lenient. Hariri tweeted, quote, Smeha attempted to ignite a civil war, so he was sentenced to 4 years, but Wissam al-Hassan foiled his attempt and saved all the Lebanese from a war, so he was executed. The comments came after other Future Movement and March 14 officials denounced the military tribunal on Wednesday and Thursday over the verdict. March 14 officials allege that the October 2012 assassination of Wissam al-Hassan, who was then head of the Internal Security Forces Information Branch, was punishment for leading the operation that uncovered Smeha's plot. The police arrested Smeha in August of 2012, charging him with transporting explosives from Syria into Lebanon with the intention to carry out bombings targeting political and religious figures. Hariri has held talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, with talks centering on the situation in Lebanon and developments in the region, particularly in Syria, Iraq and Yemen. The meeting, held in the Black Sea resort of Sochi, was attended by Hariri's chief of staff Nader Hariri and his advisor for Russian affairs George Shaban. During his visit, Hariri met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. He also held talks with the chairman of the Russian State Duma Foreign Affairs Committee, Alexei Pushkov, who said that Moscow was planning a bigger role in the Middle East after a decades-long absence. He also criticized Washington for failing to resolve regional conflicts over the past 2 decades. A statement released by Hariri's office says Hariri, who began an official visit to Moscow on Wednesday, later left for Saudi Arabia. Hariri's visit to Russia is the latest in a series of regional and international trips aimed at shielding Lebanon from the repercussions of regional turmoil. Grand Mufti Sheikh Abdul Latif Daryan has called for an independent judiciary to give criminals a fair trial following a campaign of criticism by officials against the military court over its verdict against former Minister Michel Smeha. In his televised address, Daryan slammed all those participating in the destruction of the state. The Grand Mufti also drew attention to the region's conflicts and the rising danger of extremism in several countries. Hundreds of worshippers have held demonstrations across the northern city of Tripoli to demand the dissolution of the military court, the referral of Michel Smeha's file to the Judicial Council, and the resignation of Interior Minister Nahal Mashnouk. Protesters took to the streets after Friday prayers and were led by the Muslim Scholars Association head, Sheikh Salem Rafai. They also called for a fair trial of Islamists detained in Rumia prison. Free Patriotic Movement leader Michel Aoun has blasted Prime Minister Tamam Slam's government for its democratic ignorance concerning the presidential election. March 8 lawmakers have been boycotting sessions to elect a president for the past year over the failure of political rivals to agree on a consensus candidate. Some Christian parties, including the FPM, have also expressed their intention to boycott any upcoming legislative session over the absence of a president. Aoun suggested a 3-point solution to the constitutional crisis, including the election of a president over 2 rounds of voting, carrying out a national referendum to elect the president, and to have parliamentary elections precede presidential elections. Foreign Minister Gibran Bassil has held talks with visiting German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier on Lebanon's efforts to support the burden of Syrian refugees and the ongoing conflict in the neighboring country. He also thanked Germany for its support and development aid to Lebanon, noting it is one of the few countries that have respected their vows to Lebanon.
Lebanon needs to move with the implementation of its comprehensive policy, reducing the number of persons in need of humanitarian support would enable Lebanese authorities and all our partners to better assist those really vulnerable and avoid leaving the tap open for individuals abusing the assistance system currently in place. We seek the understanding of Germany to focus our aid to those fulfilling the criteria that allow them to seek displacement to our country. We also discussed the evolution in the region. Lebanon calls for a political solution in Syria through a Syrian-led and owned, transparent, and all-inclusive political process, which categorically excludes all terrorist organizations without any foreign interference, leading to an agreement that fulfills the legitimate aspirations of the Syrian people through the organization of free elections, and that preserves the sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity of Syria. Finally, the stability in Lebanon can be assured only by reducing the number of Syrian refugees, by seriously supporting the Lebanese army to eradicate the terrorist groups, and by restoring political stability through presidential and electoral elections that can lead the true representative leaders of the Lebanese people to exercise power and the unique power-sharing model of Lebanon, a model that is mostly needed now in the region.
Hezbollah and the Syrian army have seized full control of a key hill overlooking the highway linking Damascus to Homs from jihadi fighters. Hezbollah's Al-Manar television says they have wrested control of the entire mountain range of Jabal al-Baruth after a day of clashes with militants. Separately, Syrian troops and Hezbollah fighters reportedly clashed overnight with jihadis from the Nusra Front-led Army of Conquest in Zabadani in the western part of the Kalamoun region. The UN Cultural Agency's chief says she is alarmed by developments in Syria, where ISIS militants are getting closer to the ancient city of Palmyra, Syria's most famous UNESCO World Heritage Site. Irina Bokova says Palmyra, famous for its 2,000-year-old ruins, should not become the target of any military activity. She spoke to reporters in Beirut after meeting with Prime Minister Tamam Slam. Activist groups such as the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights and the local coordination committees say that Syrian government warplanes are attacking positions of ISIS on the eastern edge of Palmyra. They're also reporting fighting on the ground. Damascus has urged the international community to protect Palmyra from ISIS, which recently destroyed several archaeological sites in neighboring Iraq. And B.B. King, known as the King of Blues, passes away. That's coming up next. Stay with us. Welcome back. U.S. President Barack Obama has vowed to back Gulf allies against any external attack, seeking to reassure them of Washington's commitment to their security amid Arab anxiety over U.S.-led efforts to reach a nuclear deal with Iran. Obama also said that the U.S. was investigating reports of chlorine used in bombs in Syria. Speaking at the Camp David presidential retreat, Obama added he continues to believe a two-state solution for Israel and the Palestinians is absolutely vital for achieving peace in the Middle East.
It is true that we've seen reports about the use of chlorine in bombs that have the effect of chemical weapons. Chlorine itself historically has not been listed as a chemical weapon, but when it is used in this fashion, can be considered a prohibited use of that particular chemical. And so we're working with the international community to investigate that. And in fact, if we have the kinds of confirmation that we need, we will once again work with the international community and the organization charged with monitoring compliance by the Syrian government, and we will reach out to patrons of Assad like Russia to put a stop to it. I know a little something about the risks of offshore drilling, given what happened in the Gulf very early in my presidency. And so nobody's more mindful of the risks involved and the dangers. That's why, despite the fact that Shell had put in an application for exploration in this region several years ago, we delayed it for a very lengthy period of time until they could provide us with the kinds of assurances that we have not seen before, taking account of the extraordinary challenges if in fact there was a leak that far north and in that kind of an environment, which would be much more difficult to deal with than in the Gulf. Based on those very high standards, Shell had to go back to the drawing board, revamp its approach, and the experts at this point have concluded that they have met those standards. I continue to believe that a two-state solution is absolutely vital for not only peace between Israelis and Palestinians, but for the long-term security of Israel as a democratic and Jewish state. And I know that a government has been formed that contains some folks who don't necessarily believe in that premise, but that continues to be my premise. And since we're up here at Camp David, I think it's important to remind ourselves of the degree to which a very hard peace deal that required incredible vision and courage and tough choices resulted in what's now been a lasting peace between countries that used to be sworn enemies. And Israel's better off for it. I think the same would be true if we get a peace deal between Israelis and Palestinians. That prospect seems distant now, but I think it's always important for us to keep in mind what's right and what's possible.
Moving on to Asia, about 900 migrants have landed on the shores of Indonesia and Thailand after being adrift at sea for weeks. The migrants are among the few who have successfully sneaked past a wall of resistance mounted by Southeast Asian countries who are turning them away. Several thousand refugees from Bangladesh and Myanmar, fleeing either poverty or persecution, are believed to be adrift on boats in the Andaman Sea in what has become a spiraling humanitarian crisis. The King of the Blues, guitarist and singer B.B. King, has died aged 89. King, known for his hits My Lucille, Sweet Little Angel, and Rock Me Baby, died in his sleep in Las Vegas. Born in Mississippi, King began performing in the 1940s, going on to influence a generation of musicians and work with Eric Clapton and U2. He was recently taken to hospital with a diabetes-related illness.
I've been trying to figure that out myself, but seemed like it's something that...
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Hundreds in Tripoli demand the referral of Michel Smeha's file to the Judicial Council. Former Prime Minister Saad Hariri accuses him of attempting to ignite a civil war. Free Patriotic Movement leader Michel Aoun blasts Prime Minister Tamam Slam's government for its democratic ignorance regarding the presidential election. And U.S. President Barack Obama vows to back Gulf allies against any external attack amid Arab anxiety over U.S.-led efforts to reach a nuclear deal with Iran. Those are your Friday headlines from us here at Future Television. I'm Linda Tanim, and I'll wish you all a very nice weekend.
كانوا يحضرون لعملية الغياب. المعادلة اختلفت.